Or what the rope does, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, what the rope does. That's what I
Yeah,
meant to
yeah.
say.
Okay.
Right? So what happens is these guys build their big farms, they have all the sea moss going, and
Yeah.
then there's bad weather, right? And when there's bad weather, the sea moss breaks off, right? Because sometimes if you're not managing it, it becomes a big bush. And so it will break off into little pieces and float all around. And then it lands somewhere and it starts growing. Not only that, but when you go through a reproductive cycle for the sea moss, how the sea moss reproduces is that it releases these eggs, and it's basically eggs and sperms. They call them something else like grommets or something like that. And so the eggs and sperms float around in the ocean suspended, and it lands onto a substrate, whether it be a rock or a seashell or a piece of coral or whatever. And then when it comes into contact with each other, it germinates and then it starts growing. That's how wild sea moss happens.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and that in itself is important because when these eggs are moving around, they're like food for other marine life,
Okay.
right? And so it lands on the rock and it creates like a little substrate or a little calcium deposit. It's called a holdfast. And that keeps it from floating away as it's starting to grow. And then as it grows, it forms out and then it turns into a bush and it just, it's just you see it kind of waving in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way
So,
for the, so go ahead.
yeah, no, no, sorry. I was gonna kind of like um reiterate what you said so I like understand what you mean.
Hmm.
So, like you're saying, there's people that farm the sea moss first, and then whether on like on a rope, and then depending on the condition of weather or whatever, um, the like the sea moss cells or whatever it is that goes to spread on it goes to spread on other rocks, and then those sea moss grow, and then the divers that are diving to get some sea moss are really just getting it from wherever that first source was.
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Like in a sense, it's all the same CMOS.
I see. And
You know what I
and
mean?
and and that's the same for all of like all of any CMOS. Is there any
No.
CMOS that is really like because it has to be to a point where it comes from somewhere, no? Like
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It originally came from the rocks, right?
okay,
CMOS was in the rocks or whatever. They released their eggs and they floated all over and they landed in new rocks and they propagated,
yeah,
right? But at a certain point, in the last, say, 60 years, we started taking those sea mosses off the rocks and started putting them on plants. And in fact, additionally, the Venezuelans were the ones that gave us the species that we use now. It's called Capophycus aberrans. And the reason why we use that species commercially is because it's one of the few species of sea moss that produces a slimy membrane on the outside of the skin, right?
yeah,
A lot of these wild crafted sea mosses or wild species of sea moss, they're sitting in the open ocean and they're collecting all this what's called biofouling. Have you heard of that term, biofouling?
nah, I don't know.
Biofouling is basically shit. It's the collection of shit and guck and all the fucking muck in the ocean,
Yeah,
right? Because you got to remember all the fish, all the whales, all the sharks, everybody's pooping in the same place. And that's
okay,
something we don't think about. But when you see the bits and things in the ocean, that's poop.